So the very first experience that babies have of the outer world is to what we call a subjective object. Let me explain this because it's pretty easy to understand. Think about it. If you're mixed up with all of the sensations that you feel, and when you get hungry, this big breast full of milk shows up and feeds you, and when you're dirty, this being shows up and cleans you, you might get the impression that you are actually calling the shots. You're the big boss, and this big, healthy, milk-filled breast shows up because when you desire something, the world responds to you. And this is where the baby sees the mother, the outside object, as belonging to him or her. I control what this object does. It is an extension of me. So the object is perceived as a subjective thing, something that exists inside or as an extension of the baby. As the baby interacts with this primary caregiver, it will start to differentiate between the caregiver and itself. It will start to make sense of all of these different stimuli that it's been feeling, in the sense that it will start to understand that some stimuli is coming from the outside in and some is coming from the inside out. This is normal development phase for the baby, and it starts understanding that there are people outside of itself that have their own motives and drives and, their own wishes. So then the baby enters a phase of kind of mixing outer objects with inner objects, but already being able to understand that, people are kind of separate from him. Then he starts seeing mommy, daddy, the primary caregiver, and anybody else as a transitional object. So what's a transitional object? In this period, the baby still kind of sees the object as an extension of itself, but it understands that that's not 100% true anymore. It can differentiate a little bit more. It's a semi-symbiotic state. It already understands that the big breast full of milk doesn't come exactly when the baby calls, because it has its own wishes. It has its own agency. Now, if everything goes well, the baby will transition into the phase where it perceives objects as being objective objects. Now the baby can understand, oh, wait a second. The owner of the milk-filled breast is not attached to me at all. It's a completely different sort of object. Oh my God, it's separate from me. So that means I don't control it. And this is where a lot of things, in this trajectory, a lot of things can happen in terms of trauma that will make the baby kind of be like, wait a second, I don't want to be in this world where people are separate from me and where I don't control the big breast, the big milk-filled breast. This is quite dangerous. What if the breast doesn't come when I need it to come? Oh, I don't want to be part of the outer world. And then this is where the person who has a schizoid trauma will actually shut down and go back will try to go back into a symbiotic state. And how does this happen? Well, basically, all babies need their caregivers to respond to their needs through mirroring. So if I'm sad, I need for this big adult to show up and to be able to hold space for my sadness and not just like be punishing me for my sadness and making me scared of this external object that pops up and punishes me when I already feel sad. When I'm hungry, the baby needs someone externally to come and provide food. The baby needs to be able to experience 100% vulnerability and dependence in a way that generates mostly positive, even though negative experiences will always be generated, and this is a healthy part of development. The baby mostly needs to understand that this external object that receives it and takes care of it will respond positively. This allows the baby to first and foremost fully experience narcissism, fully experience being the king of the world, fully experience having power. Only when the baby can fully experience having this power can it give it up and decide to become a separate person and give that parent permission to be a separate person as well. If the baby feels that this parent is hostile, negligent, doesn't show up when it needs the parent to show up, it will come to the conclusion, it might come to the conclusion that, wait a second, when I was in my symbiotic state, when internal and external objects were all mixed up, it felt more safe than this horrible reality where I have to admit that this external person is separate from me. and that I don't control it, and that I need it, and that it doesn't come when I need it, that when I need them to come. It hurts to not see myself mirrored in this person's eyes. It hurts to be to have this person be hostile or negligent or not show up. If the baby does not have an adult that will interact with it regularly in a non-judgmental, loving, responsive way, if the baby does not have an adult that is mentally and emotionally healthy enough to be able to look into the baby's eyes and to see the baby as an individual little human being, if the baby cannot see itself in the mother's or father's eyes, and this might not be able to happen because mom is depressed. Mom has her issues, she's dead, she's working, she's not around, she has mental illness. The first way that we have a sense of self is when we look at our mommy's eyes, at our daddy's eyes, at our caretaker's eyes, and we see that they see something inside us. If they don't see anything inside us because they're disconnected with their, worried about their own worries, the schizoid cannot find himself or herself. And this is scary as heck. So they decide that the outer world is no place to be. Relationships are dangerous. Relationships are not trustworthy. And when we look at schizoid patients, many of them came from quite narcissistic upbringing, where their emotional needs were completely ignored. But whenever there was contact with a primary caregiver, they were very rigid, and they had many rules. And so the baby actually felt ignored as an individual and as an emotional being. But every time that they were seen inside their mommy's or daddy's eyes, it was with all of these conditions and this rigidity, and with all of this suffocating, all of this suffocating energy, like, you have to be what I want you to be. So what the baby learns is that not only is the outside world incapable of seeing it and of satisfying its needs, and that relationships are very difficult, and that baby cannot have its needs met, but it also learns that if it were to have contact with other people, it would be invaded, suffocated, and it would lose its sense of self.